switches over. Hopefully it's not actually going to be that long, though, because, we are kind of starting late, and it looks like we are, in fact, live. Let me switch back the view. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Emily Drunk, and tonight on episode 148, we'll be discussing the latest in Overwatch esports, see what's buzzing in this week's hot community topics, reflect on Overwatch League's opening week, and preview some of this week's marquee matches in OWL. But before we can do that and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to thank everyone who is already hanging out in our Twitch chat here tonight for our live show, and of course thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Edinar. And Ed, we're hot off the heels of opening week. We've had plenty of debuts. We've seen expansion teams toppling some of the Season 1 teams. We've seen consecutive Map 5s kind of like throughout almost an entirety of the day. And we've had a lot of other stuff and a lot of storylines to kind of follow here. So with everything that has been going on this past week, how have you been doing?
I have been doing good. I've spent a lot of time watching the Overwatch League. Mainly, I've expressed this on our show last night, OWL by the Numbers, cheap plug, that the fantasy aspect of Overwatch League is really something that is piquing my interest even more in the Overwatch League. I'm paying closer attention to all the matches. I'm looking not just from a good play point of view, I'm looking at a good play with fantasy implications. I'm looking for that, I told them, I told Ramses and I told Mel over at the Cavalry, I apologize for the next 24 hours. So I'm looking for that Raucus, the not good player that is good at fantasy. I hate to put it that way, but, he's the Blake Bortles of the Overwatch League. He's, puts up great numbers, but he's not so good, So that's it's hard to distinguish between which and which from day to day. So that's a little hard. But, it's been a great week, playing Destiny 2 and playing some Apex like everyone else on the planet. I've been playing a lot of Overwatch. I finally ordered my jerseys. For those of you interested, I went with two. I went with Godsby from the Spark, who is amazing. And then I went with Fissure from the Soul Dynasty, because, he's just a beast. I'm very much looking forward to this upcoming week. Looking forward to getting even a more clear picture on how bad some teams are, how good some teams looked in week 1, but probably suck. Looking at you, Shock and Fuel. It's just one of those things where, we can't jump to conclusions too much on week 1, but we will anyway. So I don't know. How has your week been?
Oh man, it's really been a week. Obviously, between podcasts and Monday through Wednesday and Overwatch League Thursday through Sunday, I'm pretty much Overwatch Beyond full time at this point, and that's going to be like that for the foreseeable future. I did actually guest on another podcast yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. My days are so mixed up because it's midweek. But I was actually guesting on the Broverwatch, which is one of the YouTube Overwatch podcasts that is also kind of involved in our fantasy Overwatch League. We had our fantasy showdown. They're part of that. And one of their guys was out for the week, so I became the an honorary Canadian just for one day, and one day was more than enough. So I am back to my roots, so to speak. But it was a really good time, and it was an interesting take, just kind of serving as a co-host, because normally I'm used to kind of pushing the moderation, keeping the show on track, if at all possible, depending on what podcast it is, because
you can't keep me on track.
Sometimes it works better than others, and other times we overshoot, kind of like what we did last night when we kind of like redid our infrastructure in regards to the format on OWL by the numbers. So I'm going to figure out like how to fine tune that so we can hit that hour mark, like what we were planning on doing. And I'm very confident that I'll have a good grasp on that going into next Tuesday's show. But Overwatch League opening week was amazing. The viewership was pretty good. It was better than I was expecting just because, it's been such a long time.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people were kind of dreading viewing the 3-3 meta just because, a lot of people are vocal about, 3-3. But people still showed up. So I will take that as a win one way or another. But I do want to go ahead and just jump into the news. So we got quite a bit to cover tonight. And it is worth noting that we do have a new patch that was deployed to live servers. And this is already one that we've technically already covered when it hit the PTR. But this is the one that has the new assault map of Paris. And what's important to note is that Paris is not going to be in a competitive pool until March 5th. Now, if you're wondering the ins and outs of the Paris map, well, Spider actually had our map overview ready. It's like a 4-minute overview. It's a quick video. You can kind of like learn all the different routes that you can take on the flank, see where the point control is, all of that good stuff. So I highly recommend you guys go over to our YouTube to check that out. And I just want to point out, Ed, last time we discussed Paris, you and I kind of went on this tangent about the bartender Omnix. And the first thing I saw when I was browsing my social media after the map came out was actually, a clip of someone doing what I did and just murdering the bartender. So it's not just me. So I just thought I'd bring
people out there.
Yeah, there's
just trying to do his job.
Right.
Trying to get people drunk. And you have to go and kill them. I don't get you. I don't get people like that. So you're the type of people who drive in the left lane and purposely go slow. That is what I compare you to. That is what you are. But yes, we did get a new map. So, but there was more to that, right? Like, I mean, do we want to talk about the map first or any of the changes? Otherwise, we've kind of gone over the changes that were coming, the minor changes that were coming.
Right.
In.
I mean, there are very minor changes, but like if you have anything to like kind of add on to, maybe some of the stuff that you've seen on Paris, or what your thoughts are on like the prioritization changes. But I will note, like, just as a reminder, this was the patch that added the ability to switch over ownership of lobbies for custom games. So for all of the community game nights, this is a godsend, really, because there's been too many times where like someone has to leave or someone disconnects from the server, and then the ownership is basically just up in the air and it just goes to someone random. So I'm looking forward to actually getting to use this whenever we are hosting a game night, or whether we're in Cavalry game night or OmniClab, really any of the other podcast networks. So I am looking forward to that. But I've actually not really had that much time to actually be in Overwatch, so I haven't really touched Paris since it came out on the PTR. So if you had any other experience on it, why don't you talk about some of that?
All right, so I've played it a couple times, and by a couple I mean twice now on live, since because I'm not doing the arcade Paris where you're guaranteed the map, but like I've hit it in quick play and in Mystery Heroes. And River Hippo in chat points out, or sorry, Tyler in chat pointed out, it's a Lucio playground. It really is. Lucio is, especially for point A. For those of you out there who don't know, it is a 2 CP lull. So yes, River Hippo is right. Everyone will hate it, even though it's a great map, because it is 2 CP and it's kind of a laughing stock. Now, the first point is, yes, it's a Lucio playground, it's a sniper playground, it's a Pharah playground. I did not see anything that really works well with goats or 3v3 on point A, but point B is definitely it's one of those point A go DPS to overrun them, and then from point A to point B, it's a let's go goats, type of maps, and which I'm totally fine with. I actually prefer something like that because then you get to see these nice switch ups mid match and stuff like that. So But overall, I mean, the map is beautiful. I truly enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with Ash on the map, just because there's lots of angles for you to take with throwing her dynamite. Bob coming in from every which way. So, yeah, Tyler's right. Point B is Hanamura B. Like, it's one of those without the. And correct me if I'm wrong, anyone out there, please. But there's no real high ground to come in first and then drop down. It's more from the sides. So it's kind of like if Temple of Anubis had access to the point from the left and the right, and then down the center. So it's a little bit more access. But the rollout from point B, from the spawn for the defenders on point B is actually a little farther away than on Anubis or Hanamura. So it's not as drastic. Like of a, hey, they're going to spawn on top of us when they die type of thing. So it will be interesting. I'm excited to see some pro play on it. I mean, sadly, we won't get to see truly pro play on it till stage 2, most likely. When it comes live, and they said they won't be adding new maps in between, like during a stage. So this will be out on stage 2, which I'm fine with, if it's part of that specific map pool. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's probably my favorite 2CP so far, just because of all the flanking points that you can have.
I have to say, like, that's a pretty low bar to kind of surpass at this point, just because it is 2CP. But I'm going to ask a real hard-hitting question here. When it comes to the Overwatch League, is Paris going to be the best team on the Paris map, or are they just doomed?
They're doomed, because here's the thing. Paris, and we'll get into this later, Paris is phenomenal at running goats. I don't see this as being a true full goats map. So they may be able to capture point B on offense fairly well, but we don't know if they'll be able to capture point A well. We don't know how this team is outside of goats. So I'm going to go with, no, Paris is not. And the first time they lose on Paris map, the world will be lit on fire. I mean, yes, they'll obviously win it if the first time they play it is against Houston. That's a gimme. But, any other team, they'll probably lose to them on the new Paris map. So.
All right. Well, I do want to remind everyone that we did have some changes to basically like prioritization in regards to like what's getting depleted for different health types within the game. So I quickly want to go over the previous priority, how it was, and then tell you what the new priority system is. So originally, we had basically non-recoverable health options, and then we had recoverable ones, and it would kind of like switch back and forth. So before it was non-recoverable shields, before recoverable shields, and you had non-recoverable armor before recoverable armor, and then non-recoverable health before recoverable health. Now, the new priority system is you basically have all of the non-recoverable health types that are going to be depleted before the recoverable types. So basically what this means is this is in fact going to be another nerf to the 3-3 composition. So for Zarya, for Zenyatta, it means that they're not going to be as beefy as they once were. So, that active health type that they have up when it comes to their temporary stuff is not going to stay up as long. It's not going to have that extra pad in and be hidden behind something else. So, this could see a little bit more shifts in the meta, whether it's the current meta or, even going into the Overwatch League. But again, if they are patching, it would be in stage 2. But I have to say, like, just looking at the way that they have it listed, I mean, it's kind of an eyesore just because of how many health types there are in the game. and you have 2 of each type. So just saying that in itself is definitely a mouthful, but it's definitely a bigger blow to Zarya and Zenyatta as opposed to some of the other heroes in the game. So I'm really curious to see how this is going to shake out. Maybe this is going to... I don't know if it's necessarily going to nerf the anything to do with like the damage aspect of Zarya, regardless of if she's dying a little bit more often, but if anything, you just might not see the Zaryas be as active on the front line. Maybe they're gonna stake more of the, the poke in, put up their shield, get what energy they can, and then, they swap to the other shield for their main tank or whoever needs, the personal barrier. But, Zenyatta's anyway, like right now, we're still in a pretty good spot. But they're just going to be slightly less medicine and not have quite the same survivability. But I do not expect Zenyatta to see really any sort of fall off from this change.
Yeah, neither do I, really. I don't think this does enough to squash the GOATS meta. Like you said, the Zenyatta, I don't think it will affect Zenyatta all that much because, in all honesty, most of the time when a Zen dies, it's to someone in the back line who gets some great shots on them, or a Widow or a Tracer comes back there, and regardless, either way, they're going to go down, no matter how their armor, health, it's whatnot stacks. The big one to me is, like you said, Zarya. Zarya's, all you're going to see is you're going to see less super aggressive Zaryas. Like, perfect example, if you watched Sinatra on Zarya this week. Sinatra was playing in front of the Ryan shield a large chunk of the time because he could. Like, that's just the way Zarya is built. Like, and that's his playstyle. And Zarya has surprisingly a lot of survivability on the right team. So now he may not be as aggressive, which really, when it comes down to it, is not going to hurt GOATS, really. Because honestly, the majority of GOATS, your Zarya is not in front of the Reinhardt shield, or shouldn't be in front of the Reinhardt shield. This is just a particular case. So I don't see it's going to be an issue going forward. Like, it's not going to change the meta. It's not going to change what we see in the Overwatch League. It's just, I think it's more for having, it's one of those, all right, we finally got around to fixing this, so we have continuity, and then we don't have to deal with this any time in the future for any future heroes that may come out, which we are due one fairly soon here. So,
absolutely. So moving on, we do have some new merchandise news, which I'm pretty excited about because, when we were looking back at the Mercy discussion when it comes to, I think it was the Nendoroid last, I was asking for cheaper action figures, and lo and behold, guys, we're in luck thanks to Hasbro. So, we are getting some new toys and games themed around Overwatch. So, for starters, Overwatch is going to be getting the Monopoly treatment in a collector's edition of Monopoly, and it's going to cost $50. And I have to say, that's pretty damn pricey. I'm probably not going to pick it up, but how this is going to work is basically the maps are going to be turned into properties. You'll have cards basically kind of like being loot boxes, is how they described it. And then we also have Hasbro launching 6-inch action figures that are more affordable compared to, the Nendoroids, the Figma figures out there. And these cost $23. So this is a price point that I was looking at. I'm excited to see that. So we do know that the characters that we're getting so far are going to be Lucio, we'll have Reaper, Sombra, and Tracer. And I know they have like a larger Reinhardt one that is $50. And then they also are doing like dual character packs that are also $50. So you have an Ana and a Soldier one. And then you also have Pharah and Mercy. So, you got your Farm Mercy. You got your Grandma and Grandpa. You got the grandma goggles going on in the other one. So outside of that, there's even more. We got some additional Nerf guns. So these are going to be part of the Micro Shot series. So they're a little bit smaller. And these are $10. So these ones are going to be based off of the weapons of Lucio, Mei, and Roadhog. Now, it's not going to be the hook, you know. It's going to be the shotgun, because it'd be a little bit weird to just make like a hook for like a toy, especially for a kid. That's besides the point. Unless it's like Captain Hook, you know, that's like the only thing that I could maybe see. But outside of that, we also have some character masks that are going to be released. So the only ones that they announced with that are like Genji and Tracer. But we are expecting the new action figures and the Monopoly to be released over the spring. So I have to say, like, that $23 price point is definitely what I was looking for. I need to take a closer look at all of the pictures, because like I glanced at it and I only saw glimpses on Twitter. But a lot of this stuff was kind of like unveiled at the Toy Fair. I believe it might have been the London one, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm really excited because, you know, for the most part, when it comes to the Overwatch stuff, when it comes to toys, a lot of them are on the higher end in regards to the price scale. So this is more in line. This would be more affordable. And I feel like these ones are going to be selling better than some of the other offerings that they have.
Yeah, it really will. I mean, with a $23 price point, I mean, I guess I don't know exactly how much your run-of-the-mill action figure at Toys R Us. Wait, no, they're out of business. Whatever another toy retailer would cost. But these are going to be pretty big, pretty high selling, because they are going to also be in all toy retail shops. Mm-hmm. They said these $23 and these $50 ones will be nationwide in your retail stores. You don't have to order them through a website. You can go to Target, you can go to Walmart, you can go to places like that and just buy these. So it will do that. The Monopoly is interesting, but Monopoly releases, like, if you're a popular genre of movie, video games, TV show, you get a Monopoly.
Right. On that note, I quickly just want to say the Monopoly Gamer Edition, the one that has like a lot of like the Mario Kart characters, is by far one of the coolest Monopoly releases, and that is always going to be the one that I compare every other Monopoly release to. So I don't know where Overwatch is going to rank, but it's going to be pretty hard to top that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll get the Monopoly because, I mean, I don't play Monopoly. Like, it would be cool to have, but it's like, all right, I can't really display it like I can an action figure on my desk or something like that. It would just sit on a shelf. So, but yeah, this all came out like the day after our show last week when we were complaining about the toys and action figures being way too expensive for the normal person, and then they released this. I'm like, thanks for the timing. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm very excited because, yeah, it looks like there's in this article that it looks like by the end of April we'll have the action figures and Monopoly. So, not that far away.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and shift gears and talk a little bit about what is buzzing within the Overwatch community. So first up, we actually had our dev and savior, Papa Jeffy Kep, praise him. He took to the forums to respond to a post that was kind of revolving around certain compositions in the game. And this one kind of like dealt primarily with 3 to 4 DPS heroes on the same team. Now, Kaplan noted that the devs once looked at enforcing a mode that they called 4-1-1. That's pretty self-explanatory. It was 1 tank, 1 support, 4 DPS, and the dev team found this mode to be not fun, and they didn't enjoy it. Are you really surprised by that, Ed?
No, it wouldn't be fun. Because, God, no, that would be horrible. Like, I don't know. They're starting to publicly address the issues with, like, you know, one tricks, with queues, with role queues. Like, they're kind of dancing around the subject. Mm-hmm. And this is like kind of like the first time they've started to kind of like Jeff has kind of come out and spoke about it. I expect we'll start to see a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more before they release what is obviously going to come in regards to whatever, it's role queues or however they want to go about it. So it's not such a horrible experience in comp. So, but yeah, 4-1-1 sounds atrocious because you're just like, okay, I'm going to go. Because you know what would happen is 90% of the matches, the one tank's going to be like, I'm going D.Va. And you're like, well, that's not really a tank. Because you're not.
Even if you pick a tank, you're not going to survive because you're just going to get flanked. Same with the support. Like, it's a lose-lose situation if you're one of the ones in that lineup.
Yeah, it's like a Zenyatta and D.Va are your tank and your healer. You're just like, well, we're all going to die. Soldier would be amazing. And he'll probably end up being your number one healer. So, you know, you got that going for you. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it does not sound fun. I mean, I think that the only way I think that they can actually do something like this is role queues, like they do in Warcraft. Is you can queue as a tank, and you have to play tank. But then that kind of forces people to do 2-2-2 at that point, which they also don't want to do. Mm-hmm. So then do you go to hero bans? Well, hero bans could work, but then it's just going to become a meta on itself of, okay, I'm going to ban this, they're going to ban that. Just take these two characters out of the game, which is exactly what Blizzard doesn't want to do. They don't want to make two, like, I mean, more than likely it'd be D.Va and Brigitte would be the two bans. So, okay, take those two characters completely out of the game. Then you run into the same exact problem. Then they're going to be like, well, we want 2 bans per team. We're like, no, you cannot just ban half the thing. Like, shut up. You make 0 sense. So, I don't know. It's got to change. I don't know how it is going to change, but they're breaching the subject right now. And this post that he did was like the first lead into that. And if 4-1-1 was a mode, I would never play it.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing too. Like, if they're going to be experimenting with game modes, put them in the arcade for like a week, see what the community thinks of it, and then if the community embraces it, then you reconsider it and keep it on the table. And if they don't like it, just shelve the idea. But you know, I do want to mention, like, yeah, they kind of like talked about maybe the viability of like enforcing a 2-2-2 composition. And then Kaplan also admitted the fact that like he didn't expect One Trickin to be so popular in Overwatch, and that the current state of the game is kind of like at odds with what the development team had originally imagined for the game. And there was a quote that I want to bring up from Kaplan, and he said that we hope to be able to create more highly situational characters with the thought that players would switch in situations where those characters weren't as viable. But at the end of the day, Ed, you know, people are just going to play what they want to play, whether it's one hero, whether it's 14 heroes. It could be anything. But I thought it was really curious to see, like, I want to know, like, what his initial impression or what his initial goal was, because it seems like, yes, there are some situations where a hero is map dependent or they're just better in certain spots. You know, you think of, you know, Ilios Well, where we see a lot of, you know, Orisa and Roadhog. You see a lot of Lucio on that map. And that's pretty much true about some of the other, like, King of the Hill type maps. We see a lot of like Pharah on Ilios Lighthouse. You know, we see, I'm trying to think, like, what else comes to mind. You know, a lot of on Ruins, you know, we see a lot of Widow, a lot of snipers. But like, I don't know if, like, when he had that in mind, if he felt like on every map there would be a situational hero, or if it was just like only a handful. So it seems like we got that, but it's just not to the extent that Kaplan had initially wanted for the game. And I don't know, like, how far or like how wide of a margin he was kind of expecting for heroes to fit that specific role in the game.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have situational heroes for situational maps. That is great. But the thing is the only way to fix that is there's heroes that are good on every single map. And that is what you can't have if you want to do situational type map situations. Like D.Va. D.Va is good on legit every map. Like there's not a map D.Va's truly bad on. So D.Va's always going to get picked. Well, I mean, D.Va needs to be nerfed. Like, plain and simple. Like, you need to bring those. You can't bring everyone else up to D.Va's level. You more than likely have to bring D.Va down to everyone else's level. Whether that's good for the game, bad for the game, you need to nerf D.Va into the ground. Like, it's sad to say, but she probably, at this point, she probably deserves it. You know, they also just need to get more characters out there. I think with more characters brings more heroes brings more variety. Because you get so much of the specialization on each map that each map is going to have different characters. Now, we don't have a lot of characters like that now. We don't have the Widowmaker maps. We don't have the Hanzo maps. We don't have the Junkrat maps. Like we have a little bit of that now, but if you had this map is a Widowmaker, Tracer, and a Mercy map. Like those four are amazing on this map together. That would be it. Or if there's another 15 heroes to choose from. I'm not saying throw 15 more heroes into the game, obviously, right away, but like this is something that will counter-correct itself down the line. It's a matter of can we hold on and can they hold on to the player base until it gets to the point that we get all these new heroes. And I don't think they can. So they have to do something fairly drastic now, and then down the line, it will kind of course correct itself into being a more, variety meta. I mean, look at something like League of Legends, stuff like that. Like they have massive amounts of heroes, and you can play whatever you want. There's so many different combinations. Right now, it's okay. We're going to run goats. What's the variation? Oh, we can run Winston instead of Reinhardt, or May instead of D.Va. Like, that's really it right now. And we need more options up there. More and more options. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they go with down the line, but they do need to work on it a lot because the player base, as much as the Overwatch League is the Overwatch League is thriving because it's a fun esport to watch, and they put a lot of work into the production and everything like that. The game itself is falling behind, and they need to do something pretty drastic to keep the player base and bring back some of the old player base. So, I don't know. We'll see what they do.
Well, you mentioned production, and I have to say, like, after opening week of the Overwatch League, there were quite a few hiccups. And we can't really downplay this either, because I know you and I were both experiencing very similar things when we were viewing Overwatch League during our watch party. So a lot of the issues we're dealing with the command center and the player point of view. And of course, this is tied into the Overwatch League All Access Pass. So basically, like, there were a number of, like, visual and audio glitches. I know some people were kind of, like, getting, like, these LSD trip, like, hallucinogens. It would, like, be, like, all tie-dye and all swirly, kind of, like, on their feet. Or you have just, like, major lag spikes. Like, I know the first couple of days, I could not actually do any of the player point of views because, like, every single frame, whether it was just like the map one, whether it was match stats or the actual player point of view, every single one of them was lagging behind. And then, throughout the day of our watch party, there were just times when the command center would just randomly stop working and we would have to refresh the page. So, I know it's been kind of like, it was opening week. They only have so much time to really get prep in, especially with the way they kind of like did the community day or the preseason, whatever the hell you want to call it. But I don't know how much of it was due to it being a new system or how much it was due to the fact that we're kind of on a different cycle in regards to the overall flow of the Overwatch League. They've kind of like tried to do different like number of games each week. Now there's going to be some days where we have like 10 teams playing, sometimes when we have 8 teams playing a day, and then it kind of like shifts week to week. But they also like kind of like cut down time in between matches. So like we don't really have like that long halftime with the desk segments they pretty much got rid of. So in place of that, we got the pre-show and the post-show for Watchpoint. But a lot of it is happening more often now. And I feel like with the way that they're trying to set the tone and just the overall pace, I feel like that in itself is definitely causing more issues from a production standpoint than what some people are wanting to let on. So I'm a little worried in that sense, just because like it 100% is a new system, but it's also just a different pace that they're kind of trying to implement. And pretty much like throughout opening week, they basically said like, okay, like we have our times for the matches. We're going to space them out an hour and a half. And they definitely struggled to hit that mark pretty much throughout the entirety of opening week. And if you're a community that is like hosting a watch party, like let's say one of the teams is throwing a watch party at like 7 p.m. and then you don't start till like 8 p.m. or you start early. Like if you're not someone that gets there at a decent time, you're absolutely screwed. So it's definitely something to kind of keep an eye on. But I feel like the overall pace and them constantly wanted to like get the whole show going along is really hurting the overall quality of the production. So I don't know how you feel on this, but I feel like the pace is definitely causing a lot of the hiccups.
Yeah, I mean, all right, so the stuff that happened with the All Access Pass and stuff like that, we don't know if that is on Blizzard's side or if that was actually on Twitch's side. Like, we just don't know who's to blame for that one. I think it was probably Twitch. Because, I mean, this is all stuff that Overwatch has done. This is all brand new for Twitch. Like, they've never done anything like this. So, yeah, I'm assuming those glitches were all on Twitch's side. But from the production issues that you had, like you were talking about, like the pace of play, yes, the hour and a half thing was advantageous of them. Like, they're not going to hit the hour and a half mark for any of these matches, really. Like, unless it's a 4-0 raffle stomp. And that is not going to happen unless, a good team plays the Outlaws.
Yeah, like it happened with the Titans game, and that one was like 43 or like 45 minutes. It was really quick.
Yeah, it was super quick. Like, so it depends on if you're playing the Shanghai Dragons or the Houston Dragons. Like, it's one of those two teams that you're probably going to raffle stomp them. And anything other than that, I mean, look at Sunday. Sunday's the perfect example. Straight 3-2, like 3 straight 3-2. It went super long. I don't know. There's nothing you can actually do about it from like a production point. Like, okay, what do we do? Like, do we cut the matches short? Well, you can't do anything like that. And you need to give time for a lot of these matches to, like, in between, there's a lot of time, like, for setup and stuff like that. Now, I will say this. After this year, the amount of time is going to be cut down drastically. Because, I mean, you will not have that in-between match time of, okay, we're going to take 20 minutes in between matches so the players can get set up and stuff like that. No, they're going to have home matches. So stuff's going to be set up well beforehand. Like, their keyboards are going to be out there, the mouses, everything will be set up. They just have to walk out and then they can just start playing. So you can probably shave a good 45 minutes off of all of this production just from that after this season. They just have to get back into the swing of things. I think, it's week 1. Don't get too drastic. They're trying out new things. They're at least trying to make it shorter because I think they realized that it was too long. But it should be 2 hours in between matches. It really should. Or don't give times. Like, why? Like, give it a start time. It starts at 4:30. Why give times? Like, you can give rough estimates, but honestly, every time was wrong. Period. Even the start times weren't on time. Like, they couldn't even start it at 5 o'clock my time. So what are they going to do? But it's just they're working out the kinks right now. I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt because it's Blizzard and they always put out good products. They don't take anything too lightly as much as people want to bash them and all that fun stuff. So I don't know. It will be interesting. Like, a good sense of what the production might be is when they do the home games this season. See how things work out there. That's going to be a huge test for them. So.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the esports side of Overwatch. We have a ton of information on contenders. And of course, we have some Overwatch League news. So this is going to be our Inside the Path to Pro and Overwatch League. So, good news if you are a fan of Contenders North America. Well, it starts next week. So, if you think you have a lot of esports to watch now, you don't know anything yet because, they have North America expanded into 2 groups. So if you're struggling watching 8 hours of Overwatch League, Thursday through Sunday, the good news is, Contenders North America is on Mondays and Wednesdays. So, it's good in that sense, but also terrible for us in the sense that, at times we like to cover Contenders North America. And, well, really, chances are this is going to overlap with when we're recording, possibly on both days. So, whoops. Oh, well. What can you do? Nothing we can do. But we do have the groups announced for North America. And what I like about this is they did a drafting system for how they were going to pick the groups. So basically what they did is they had Fusion University, who are back-to-back champions. They were at the top of one group. And then you had the runner-ups, our boys over in ATL Academy. They were on top of the other one. So the way that this worked was that you had teams from each group taking turns picking the next team below them, and that's how they divided it. So on the Monday group, we have Fusion University. They picked Bermuda. And then we have Chicken Contendies, which is Harblu's team. We have Mayhem Academy, Second Wind. We have a new Academy team, which we'll talk about. I'm not going to name it yet. We have...
They're not going to name it yet.
They have the name.
Oh. Thought they were still coming up with the name.
Nope.
Oh.
Ed, it's next in the show notes.
Oh yeah, there it is.
But we have Uprising Academy, and then the last pick of the Monday group was Gladiators Legion. So moving on to Wednesday's group, we had ATL Academy. They picked Phase 2. We have Second Generation. This is aptly named. This is the second generation of First Gen. It's a whole rebrand. I really like what they did there. We have Square One, Sky Foxes, Energy Esports, Team Envy, and the last pick for this group was XL2 Academy. Spoilers, we have news on them too. But anyways, Ed, we kind of got to see a lot of roster announcements as well as a brand reveal for the Toronto Defiant Academy team, which are going to be known as the Montreal Rebellion. Now, I know they mentioned they're going to be playing at a small venue that seats 500 people, and we do have the roster. We have Shane and Hui and Nomi on the tank line. We have Shane coming from Mirage Sport Electronic, who are actually running the team. Hui was on first generation, as was Nomi. For the support line, we have Goliath, who was formerly of XL2 Academy, as well as the Council Prodigy of Tensa, the one that uses a hybrid controller scheme, also from first gen. And then on the DPS line, you got Naga, also from first gen. And then Mr. Logix from XL2 Academy. So I'd say, I figured it was going to be a lot of, first gen Mirage Sport Electronic, just because, these are the two that are both kind of, making up the staff of this team. But I want to get your thoughts on the actual brand, and what do you think of the Montreal Rebellion name in itself?
I mean, it's okay. I like the name. I hate the color scheme because they're going with the black and red. They're following with the Toronto Defiant colors there. But it's Montreal Rebellion. I'm a little surprised they went with Montreal as a team, as their location city for, the Contenders team, just because, there are other bigger cities in Canada. But, Montreal's not that bad, for being in Canada. But it's you guys actually, I think Spider actually touched on it in Monday on Overwatch League Network, how Montreal is kind of the outcast of Canada. It's one of those well, there's we got Quebec, we got Vancouver, we got Toronto, and then there's our second cousin Montreal up there. We'll go ahead and just ignore them, but I like the fact that they're bringing in the players. They're all going to live together. They're all going to compete together, in one room. They're going to work as a team. I like that they're doing that with this team. Like you said, they're going to be playing in a 500-seat arena, which is awesome. I mean, I wouldn't call it an arena, but a 500-seat venue. And hopefully this brings back the Logix Redemption Tour. Logic is obviously the name most people know on this team, because he was a fairly good player in Overwatch League with the Florida Mayhem in Season 1, and then played XL2 and then got kicked off XL2 because he wasn't from America or Korea. And that whole thing. But I'm glad he landed with the Montreal Rebellion. It's a good team. Goliath, you have Hui, Logix, Nomi, and stuff like that. It's going to be a good team. Obviously, I will never pick them to win it all, which we'll talk about later. But it's a good team. I like it. I'm a fan of this, and I think they could really make a name for themselves up in Montreal and get esports up there, get the city behind them. Because what else is there to do? It's Montreal, Canada. They speak half English, half French. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. And I have to say, what is up with these team names with Toronto? You have the Defiant and then the Rebellion. I don't understand what's so rebellious about Canada. Because, what are they going to do? They're going to start, an uproar, and then they're just going to apologize about it? I don't know. I don't see it.
Have you ever seen the movie Canadian Bacon?
No, I've not.
What is wrong with you? That is John Candy at its finest. Oh, it's so great. And it's about sneaking into Canada and starting a war.
Why would you want to go to Canada?
Well, because
to start the war. Okay.
Yeah, so you can start the fight with them.
Okay.
See, that's what it's all about. Obviously, there's much drinking involved, but it's also John Candy. So go watch it. You need to.
All right. Well, anyways, that's not the only roster news that we got, because we also got news of what's going on with XL2 Academy. So it goes without saying, we've been kind of wondering, when's XL2 going to sign some American players? Is it actually going to be local talent, or is this just Hui? Not Hui the player, but it's just more rolling your eyes. What are they going to do? Well, they have basically pulled from Second Wind. So joining XL2 from Second Wind, we have Frill, Rina, Akawa, and Haku. And then also joining the team is main tank Moopy. Now, I know, they did a local push for the tri-state area, and there are 3 players on this roster that are from the New York City area in Frill, Rena, and Moopy. So when we look back at all of the roster cuts, the only survivor from that initial roster that's still on the roster is the main support player, Chair. Now, looking back at last season, Second Wind finished in the top 4 in contenders. And a pretty good show win. They lost Car, who did appear on the new roster, which we'll talk about. But it was already kind of hinted at in the past, but it wasn't official, so to speak. But are you glad to finally be able to put this behind us when it comes to the whole community perspective of kind of like the shenanigans with the localization and talent for the team?
I mean, yeah, it does. I mean, I don't know. Like, it was just a bad PR move all around for New York, and they needed to get this out of the way. They just needed to. So I'm glad they did. I'm not impressed by their roster. But the thing is New York Excelsior, the way they're set up right now, they don't need to bring anybody else in probably for the next few seasons. Like, they're just set up that way that they have so much depth. So they can really just kind of have fun with this. But, this is the only season that they're guaranteed a spot. Because if I'm not mistaken, the way the rules were set, they're guaranteed a spot this season. After this, if they fall into the bottom 2, they have to earn their way back in, which would be devastating for them. Now, granted, they got some good players from Second Wind, outside of their best player, Car, who went to. Okay, we'll get to that next. But it's a good team. I mean, they'll definitely finish middle of the road. I don't think they're gonna light worlds on fire or do anything like that. But it will be good to see. Some of these. It's good to see Second Wind out there. So I'm excited to see them when I can watch them because, I mean, let's face it, Thursday through Sunday, Overwatch League. Mondays is my only free night because Tuesdays we podcast, Wednesdays we podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be Monday nights. And I don't know if I can do that to myself. I need to sleep at some point. You have to podcast Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm. You
are a madman.
I'm probably only going to follow Fusion and Atlanta, to be honest. Like, I'm not, there's no way I can physically sit down and watch every Contenders match on top of every Overwatch League match. It's just not going to happen. And I don't want to be one of those guys that just like picks and chooses on both aspects, because I'm just too invested in a lot of the players. But that being said, I do want a quick, note, like, with XL2, like, yes, they have Yaki, they have Kirby from MVP Space. We talked about this in the past. And if anyone's going to get shifted around to the main roster, it'll be those two because they're kind of a Korean team, and pretty much everyone else isn't. So keep that in mind. But we do have the roster finally for Fusion University, who are going to be looking at 4-peating as the North America champions. And Edenar, we finally have solved another esports mystery in where in the world is Beast Halo. So after all of this time, Ed, where is Beast Halo?
On the best team in Contenders, and probably better than 75% of the actual Overwatch League. Just saying, he's on Fusion University. He's back. He's back on Fusion University. Like, Fusion University lost Zachary. They don't have Who Are You, although he's still technically on loan, whatever that deal is. And somehow it's like, hey, you're on the 3-peat, and your team got better. Like, they're okay. So we'll go over the roster. I'll just say it real quick. So Beast Halo, he's back. So him and Bernard and Chainsick are the 3 tanks. So Beast Halo and Bernard are going to be your 2 tanks. more than likely. So you got Nasty and Snillo on DPS. Awesome. Great DPS. Their supports are better than the majority of all Overwatch League teams. So you're looking at Alarm, who's probably top 3 Zenyatas I've ever seen play. Period. You have Elk, who's on a 2-way contract with Philadelphia Fusion, who's not getting play because he's behind Boombox and Neptuno, 2 of the best supports in Overwatch League. And then throw in Karkar from Second Wind. Yeah, from Second Wind from last year. Their best player left to join Fusion University to replace Elk. But Elk is still on a 2-way contract. So their backup support is probably a top 3 support in Contenders. I don't know how they don't steamroll all of Contenders and just 4-peat. Like, I can't see a scenario where that is not going to happen. I don't know. You can speak up for it more than me. Like, but this is just insane.
You know what the crazy thing is? It's just the fact that we're even having the discussion that a team out there has the potential of winning 4 seasons in a row. Now, you can say a lot about like the management behind Fusion University, how they scout talent, but last season in Contenders, we felt like losing that DPS line, losing Who Are You, losing Zachary was going to be this massive blow to Fusion Uni, and they exceeded our expectations, and they continued their dominance, and it just seems like at the end of the day, regardless of what piece gets moved around, whether someone gets in contract, jail, or whatever the hell is going on with the loan to Meta Athena for Who Are You, whatever happened to Beast Halo initially, we have no idea what the situation was. There's a lot of rumors going around, but nothing is actually concrete. We don't know what the situation was, but every time we think that Fusion University is going to look weaker or just not be as dominant as they have been, they prove us wrong. And now that North America is split into 2 groups, it's more opportunity for these Contenders trials team to actually compete at the Contenders level. So I'm really curious to see what the relegation is going to be this season in particular, just because there's going to be a good mixture, a more even split between kind of like the tier 3 teams and a tier 2 team. So I don't know if it's just going to be the academy teams just kind of like sweeping up, but I thought it was interesting with the draft how, we even saw some of the academy teams fall in last, like Gladiators Legion. So it definitely kind of tells you like where some of these teams feel like the other academy teams are. But Fusion Uni, Alarm is a potential. I'm not gonna say potential. He's gonna be a mid-season sign into the Overwatch League this year. There's no way he's gonna be sitting. And it's worth noting, Karkar has played both main and flex support. So I don't know if that's gonna be the plan, but like honestly, like if Elk and Alarm both move up or both transition to the Overwatch League, I think that will probably be what is going to lower Fusion University as a whole, just because of how much Elk provides in regards to the shot call-in and just enables that team to perform. But I'm excited to see this team again, and I am not going to discredit anything that they've done or overlook the players, because they have a stronger roster this season, and I expect them to go 5-0 again. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
they're too good of a team.
Now,
but
did you see the documentary that came out?
I have not. I know that came out here in the last week.
Yeah, I actually watched it. It's pretty good. So for those of you out there, someone made a documentary, an Overwatch documentary, labeled "Why Fusion University is So Dominant." And like the whole like the first start of the actual documentary is this guy being like someone was telling him about like the stats of they haven't lost a map in two seasons, like they haven't lost a series ever, like it's just they basically were just he's just like no this can't be the case. And then they talk about why why they were so dominant, why and stuff like that. And a lot of it goes back to Arrow. A lot of it goes back to coaching and Arrow and what he put in place and stuff like that. So it's a pretty good documentary. Like literally all you have to type into Google is Fusion University documentary, and it's the first thing that pops up. So I highly recommend doing that now. I'm hoping next season, when there's the Chicago team, we can just be like, I will take Car, I will take Beast Halo, I'll take Bernard, I'll take whoever is left on Fusion University, and then we'll just sign them. And then Sugar Free. Even though he can't play for 5 years. 6? I don't know. 6
It's
years.
hard to keep track because, every time he plays, he gets younger.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, this team is ridiculous. I fully expect them to go 5-0 and win. I think the thing that I'm looking forward to the most with them is the new format with Contenders, where like they start doing like the international competitions. Mm-hmm. So where eventually what it's gonna all right, they say it's an open competition, it's Brazil or Australia and China and Korea and like all these contenders like areas are going to compete. It's going to end up being Fusion University versus the best team from Korea. Like that's what it's going to come down to.
Runaway.
If it's going to be them.
It's a runaway.
Runaway 5.0, whatever they're on now. But yeah, it's probably going to end up being Runaway versus Fusion University, and that will be an actual matchup. Like that is an Overwatch League worthy. I hope they just pump the hell out of that.
They
won't.
I want to point out to all of our listeners that Ed is 100% discrediting Europe.
I 100% am. Like I'm not even sugarcoating. I'm Europe. Sorry, you come up with some decent teams here and there. You are not on Korea's level, and you're not on Fusion University's level. Plain and simple.
Well, we'll see how Paris keeps doing, and if they just steamroll everyone in the 3-3 meta.
Yeah, that's all right. Paris is different because they are plucking the best players from each team, and in Europe, from Europe, and putting them on one team. If this team in Paris, for the Paris Cox, like. is not like, hey, this happens to be we signed a full Contenders team to our roster. No, that's not what happened. They took people from other Overwatch League teams. Like, there is not one dominant Contenders team in Europe. There just isn't. So, yeah.
I'll agree to disagree, just because we do need to get into our opening discussion of Overwatch League. But anyways, we're not going to go like over all of the results because, all that information is out there. It's already happened. You guys know who won, who lost, or, who just got stomped in 43 minutes. All of that good stuff. But I do want to talk about some of our takeaways from opening week. So first up, I do want to just say, like, we got to see the redemption arc of Dafran start to play out before our very eyes. And what does Dafran do? He comes out on the Ilios well on Torbjorn. And I just have to say, like, that was the most Dafran thing to do. And it absolutely worked. Like, they got to like 90-something percentage or something like that on the first take, run into Torbjorn. And it was like the most fitting thing to start his journey in the Overwatch League. And with Atlanta just across the board, like, they really surprised me. And I know, like, Dogman was kind of a late addition to that team, But like just looking at the Fran and Dogman on stage and seeing like that raw emotion that they had, you could tell that they were really getting into it, and I hope we get to see that throughout the season. But the Fran was just doing his own thing, and then when he swapped over to the Zarya, when this team was running 3-3, you got to see that tracking that he has been known for since day one. And regardless of, him as a personality, you can't deny his talent. And I really feel like if Atlanta just tells him, hey, like, you're focusing on this, we're cutting back on the streaming, or you're just not doing it at all, I'm pretty confident that he's not going to run into any issues.
I'm not as confident as you, but the thing is I'm pleasantly surprised at how Dafran played and how the Atlanta Reign played. I think you're right. I think Dogman was vital to this team because you needed somebody on the same level of craziness. Not craziness, but like hype level as Dafran. Like if you just had Dafran by himself, you're going to be like, okay, this guy is out of place. He's like jarring with people. He's, out there. But you have Dogman standing up in between matches, pumping up the crowd. Like, you need somebody like that. So I mean, in all honesty, they're the Bash Brothers from Mighty Ducks. They really are. They're the two that, like, when paired together, just pump up the crowd by just being there and their antics. They back it up with play. Well, Dafran backs it up with play. Dogman he's not bad. He's just middle of the road, flex support. But those two together just get everyone's blood going, get the juices going, like get the crowd pumped up, get their team pumped up. And that's how they can go in and do this kind of stuff. And they can come in and play Torbjorn on Ilios and put the turret in the most brilliant spot without even really trying. He's just like, so he put it up on the ledge on Ilios on the well, and he's just like nonchalantly, like I was following him. He's just like nonchalantly looks up, tosses it up there, knows it lands in the perfect spot, and then goes somewhere else. I'm like, how come I can never do something like that? Like, all right, fair enough. But like, even in his interview afterwards, his interview after the game was amazing. But like, so Atlanta was definitely a pleasant surprise. There are a lot of pleasant surprises about week one. Atlanta being one of them, the Spark being one of them. They really showed up. There were some not so good things. I'm looking at you, Houston Outlaws. I'm also mainly looking at you, London Spitfire. I think that's the biggest talking point that a lot of people are talking about. A lot of people are not going on about, because you have the Atlanta, you have all the new expansion teams, you have all these 3-2 matches, stuff like that. The Overwatch League champions went 0-2, and they do. It's not like, hey, they played good teams. They went 0-2. They played Fusion and lost. They lost to Paris Eternal, but they looked really bad in both those losses. They look lost when they're out there, and I don't know how they can come back from this. Like, the only thing I think they can really truly do is not run any form of goats. Like, because they are trashed here when it comes to goats. Like, you saw them, like, you didn't really recognize it in the first match because you hadn't seen all the other team play goats. Like, so this was the first match where you're seeing two professional teams play goats. And, they were playing against each other. Okay, Fusion University got the edge on Spitfire. Everyone's like, okay, that's fine. That's not a huge upset. I mean, they were both in the championship game last year. And then you started watching more 3v3 as the week went on. And you're just like, oh, yeah, no, this is actually how you play it. And then when they played Paris Eternal, everyone's like, yeah, no, Spitfire, you're not good. So that was my biggest takeaway, probably. And surprising players that don't play. 2 people in particular. Like 2 household names that just didn't play. And that's Striker for San Francisco. Well, sorry, Striker played for like 1 map. Whatever. He really didn't play. But Custa not playing was just blindsided everyone. Because it's like, he's your team captain. He's a good support. He's just probably not the best Lucio. And that's the only thing keeping him out of the roster. And so it was surprising. But, it's the first week. So we have to see 1 more week before we can go crazy. But yeah, I'm excited. A lot of takeaways from week 1.
Yeah, and I do want to note that our network did release our new Power Rankings video on YouTube. And what I will say for those that haven't seen the Power Rankings, either on Discord, on our website, or through the YouTube video, is that there were only 3 teams across the board that had no movement whatsoever in our Power Rankings. There were some major shakeups from the top all the way down to like 18th, technically, because 19 and 20 stayed the same. Spoiler. But there were so many interesting things. So I'm glad you brought up London. So London, 100%, when it came to the 3-3 composition, it did not look that good. But I felt like the 3-3 play outside of like 2 teams, really. Like Hancho Spark looked pretty good running 3-3. Paris Eternal looked the best at 3-3, which is no surprise because that's Europe special, dating all the way back to 2016 with Ninjas in Pajamas. They're just used to running heavy tank composition, so I expected good things from them just based on what the current meta is. But London basically went, okay, we're going to do 3-3. Okay, that didn't really work. So then they basically subbed in Guard, and they tried running Sombra over, I think it was D.Va in that composition, which we actually got to see quite a bit in the Overwatch League in opening week. There was a ton of Sombra play, which I was happy to see, except for one thing. Dante was not seen running the Sombra as what I expected him to. And for all of the issues that people bring up with the Outlaws, and I feel like some of them definitely are overplayed or overstated, but Dante not being on Sombra was an absolute crime, and I really expected him to see play on that role, and we just didn't get it. But when it came to London, though, Guard initially looked really good, but then when they played Paris and tried to do it, they were basically getting pushed back to spawn, and it was just a complete shutout. So I don't know what the answer is going to be for London. We've basically seen some teams, and this is primarily the Chinese expansion teams. They basically came out, they're like, hey, we're going to put our own spin on things. We're going to come out, we'll do solo tank, triple DPS, 2 support, and then in some cases, like that Guangzhou versus Chengdu match, it was like no 3-3 at all.
Yeah.
So that was like one of the most intriguing matches to watch. And you could definitely like make an argument on like what side of the fence you are with whether or not enforcing that type of play style is going to be effective in the long run. But initially, it might be something that's going to be hard for teams to practice for. But I'm not expecting like Chengdu and like Guangzhou to like ease their way like up the power rankings like into like a top 6 team or anything like that. But they might be more middle of the pack, more so than what we would initially anticipate. But at the end of the day, a lot of people going into the Overwatch League this year were just like, I do not want to see 3-3. And while we did see a lot of 3-3, we also got to see every single hero getting played in open in a week. We got to see Symmetra, played by Surefour. He beat Muma to the Ponchonet, which I absolutely loved. And, varying success with Symmetra. We've seen that potential counter to the 3-3, trying to, get the ultimate to build the wall to kind of like split off the transcendent ceiling, on the enemy team. And, there's times where it does good and sometimes where it does bad. But with that quick charge on the left click with the beam, especially since we are seeing a ton of Reinhardt on the main tank position, it's very easy to boost up that damage quickly. And, we got to see Torbjorn. We saw, some Moira in the 3-3 composition. And we got to see Ashe. We got to see Bob. That
was amazing when the crowd started chanting Bob.
I forgot to ask Blazing Bob if he thought they were cheering for him or if he knew what was going on at the time. Because I don't know if he was like doing an interview when that was happening or what was going on. But like I could just see Bob being like, "Yeah, I know.
I'm that good. Deal with it."
So the other thing too is, you mentioned Castanet started, and actually the Valiant started Kuki on main support, who is normally a main tank player, and that blindsided all of us. Now, there's been like some murmurs about like maybe Kuki is better at shot call in this current meta. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but for someone that never plays the role, I thought he did okay. There was definitely some moments where he got punished, but for the Valiant to still be able to look as good as they did with someone on a brand new role, or even someone transition into an old role that they played in Kariv, who did in fact move back to DPS as we expected him to, they're still looking like mid-card right now.
Yeah.
But the potential is definitely there for that team. And really outside of that, I was really happy to see that not only did Hanjo Spark kind of live up to, kind of like our set expectations, but we also did not see any sort of hiccups from the Vancouver Titans, when Runaway came out on stage, and they just absolutely crushed Shanghai. So I was happy to see that. And, the Spark could go in 2-0. What more can you ask for? And I'd see, like, no Smite. I hyped him up kind of going into the league, kind of being like, shunned aside because he wasn't picked up for the first season. And No Smite just came in. He brought like this. It wasn't an aggressive Reinhardt, but he was playing more based on reactions. And when the Spark were going up against the Valiant, Fate was just getting out-dueled the entirety of the series, and he was constantly on the back foot. And that was not something that I was expecting to see from Fate, who is highly regarded as like a top 3 main tank in the Overwatch League. So for Spark to basically, flex on people right from the get-go was like one of the highlights for me this week. And I know you were definitely happy to see that as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I was super happy with everything that the Spark did. I'm in love with Godsby. I will flat out say that. I think he is probably a top 5 DPS in the Overwatch League right now. A couple of things I wanted to point out. Houston, yes, I have been crapping on Houston, and rightfully so, because they looked horrible coming in. And it's not the play. They're all pretty decent players. If they played right, they are a middle of the road team. They're never going to be a top 6 team. With the roster they have now, they're not going to be top 6. They're not going to be top 8. I mean, they may not even be top 10 when they play to their full potential. But right now, to me, exactly, Tyler put it right. New coach, Houston. The coaching in Houston was horrible. It was bad. It was, everything from, like you said, Dante being on Zarya, not Sombra, who, when Dante is probably the best Sombra in Overwatch, in the Overwatch League. Now, granted, there's a lot of people we haven't seen play Sombra. Like Zachary, I don't think we saw play Sombra. And Zachary played a lot of Sombra in contenders last year for Fusion University, if I'm not mistaken. They had AKM on the Sombra, and he did really good for them. So you had that. You had, you're not starting Linkser, which is insane to me. You're bringing in that horrible Reaper move by Linkser was just stupid. Just stupid.
That was 100% Linkser's idea too, which he stated in an interview.
Yes, it was. But all of these decisions goes back to coaching, though. Like, it does. Like, it's bad coaching right now. And, you know, Muma is I will say this, Muma is a phenomenal tank. Like, Muma is a great tank. It did a phenomenal job. I know nothing bad to say about Muma. Raucus is a top 8 to 10 flex support. Boink has been playing pretty good. Like, they have talent there. It's bad decision making and bad coaching. I don't know if they just don't have a good shot caller, if they're getting bad coaching behind the scenes, they're not watching videos enough, they're working too much on their hair. I don't know what's going on with them. But they need to make some changes because they have the talent to be above where they're at. But right now, you know, I think we have them bottom 5. And that's where they deserve to be because, yes, they went to 3-2 in both their matches. But they went 3-2 in both their matches against bottom half teams. Like teams that are not top 10. So it's like you went 3-2 against bad teams. So it's not something to write home about. The other thing is, and I will say this, I rated them higher this week than all the rest of you, and that's the Shanghai Dragons. I think the Shanghai Dragons are a much better team than we give them credit for. They got a super raw end of the deal this week in week 1, playing the Spark and the Titans, who we all have as top 4 teams. So they played 2 of the top 4 teams and lost both of them. Like, that's supposed to happen. That doesn't mean they're bottom 3. Like, they actually have a good team. If you look at everything stacked against them going into this week, no one in their right mind would have predicted them to even come close to winning. Like, okay, you have no main tank. And, like, they tried throwing Gamsu in their second match against the Titans, but he wasn't ready. Like, he had no, like, you could tell he just didn't have that, you know, the timing with his teammates and playtime with his teammates and stuff like that. So you really weren't getting the full effect of it. So I think Shanghai is going to bounce back this week and not be as bad as everyone thinks that they are. They just got the raw end of the deal on week 1.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's just a matter of how quickly can they build up that synergy on the front line, because that's really going to be the thing that's going to hold them back, if anything. But I do quickly want to note, though, like when Shanghai rolled out during their first set, we didn't actually see Yunjin playing main tank. You know, they basically said, like, hey, like, we're going to be playing him main tank. You know, Gagiri's going to be doing her thing on off tank. You know, and Yunjin was going to be stepping up in Fearless's absence because he is back in Korea. Now, this was before they signed Gamsu, and then we heard about the Gamsu sign-in, and then we're like, okay, well, like, I'm sure the plan is still going to be Yunjin on main tank, at least for the first week, and we didn't actually see that play out at all. Yunjin was not on main tank, and Shanghai basically rolled out. They had, literally, they rolled out, Gagiri was on a Wrecking Ball. You know, they were doing the triple DPS compositions, and it was okay. But it wasn't like, I wouldn't rate it better than what we saw out of the other triple DPS that we saw from the Chinese teams.
No.
But I will say, when it comes to Shanghai, this is not going to be, like, we're not going to keep continuing the meme. You know, a lot of people are just like, okay, well, like, 0-42, you know, we keep seeing, like, the customized jerseys updated basically every week with, you know, the name Owen, and then, you know, updating the number. And that's going to keep happening until they win a match. And it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
But I think, like, given another week, this team is going to look drastically different. And out of everyone, at least on the Dragons, DM was just popping off. And I cannot wait for the Dragons to play Fusion, so we can see the friends Carpe and Diem dueling one another, because that is going to be an absolute treat to see. But I would definitely say, like, for now, a lot of us put him probably lower than they should have been, but that's primarily just due to the fact that we saw two different Shanghais in the first week. What Shanghai are we to see in week 2, we don't quite know, but we did get to see a little bit more stability out of some of the other teams, and that's kind of like where there's that conflict. So they're not going to be a bottom half team throughout the season, but for now, it's too early to really tell if they're mid card or if they're below that kind of like cutoff point.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree with you. I just don't think they're bottom tier teams. Well, I mean, they're not going to be worse than Washington and Florida, but they're not bottom tier team. I don't think so. Yeah, it will be interesting to see. They play the Boston Uprising this week, which you said, and this kind of comes into our main discussion type, which is essentially our main discussion is previewing Overwatch League stage week 2. But like next week, they go into another up against another team where it's one of those. We saw the Boston Uprising team, but we're going to see a different Boston Uprising team this week because they get one of their main players back in Color Hex. Like, because they were running, they had both their, main tanks out there running, 3-3, very aggressive, very, they're very impressive, but you have to imagine that Color Hex is coming back to play.
Right, and he'll probably be playing Zarya.
He'll probably be playing Zarya, but that might throw off a dynamic on that team because, he's not, we don't know what main tank is going to be in there. Like, that's the big thing. Are we going to get fusions in there? Or is he only going to be playing on Reinhardt maps? Or, like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know what Boston Uprising is going to do because they kind of had a makeshift roster because they only had one DPS player. They didn't have that tracking. They may actually be better this week because they do have that DPS with the tracking on Zarya. So it's one of those things where that's going to be an interesting matchup because I think you're going to have more of the normal rosters for them. Is Axiom going to be playing or is Fusion's going to be playing? What is going to happen? So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting week this upcoming week because we're getting a lot of people back from suspensions. Not a lot.
There's a couple.
But they're very, important, coming back. So I said, Color Hex is coming back from Boston. Crystal was already back from the Spark.
Well, I do want a quick note, though. I think Crystal had some sort of injury, and he's actually in Korea right now, and that's why we haven't seen him. There was some comment on that on the competitive Overwatch Reddit that I saw. I'm going to try to find it after the show for you, but someone did mention that.
Okay. That would be kind of huge if not, because Crystal, a lot of people have a lot of, high hopes for him. Playing. We're not going to see Neko this week. I don't think. They only play one matchup this week, so Neko's gone. Right. But you're going to get back Violet for the San Francisco Shock, who is probably going to replace Sleepy as their flex support.
Yeah, and I do quick want to note, Sleepy in week 1 really impressed me. We knew that Sleepy is an awesome Zenyatta, but we were looking at the fantasy stats, obviously, and Sleepy was definitely at the high end. Really, the only person that was kind of above him, at least on that role, was Shaz, who put up 400 points combined, which was just crazy.
Yeah, it's one of those things. But the thing is you don't bring in someone like Violet to bench him. As much as it sucks for Sleepy, you don't bring in Violet not to play him. So maybe they trade Sleepy for another DPS. I don't know.
You know who needs Sleepy?
Chicago.
Well, that's not where I was going with this, but yes. But there might be another team. Houston.
I mean, Houston needs a lot.
Yeah, Houston has a problem.
They do, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a big week. There's lots of good matchups this week. You're going to see a lot more of the new teams this week because a lot of the new teams only played one match last week.
Right. I do quick want to note though, outside of that, you mentioned Violet, you mentioned Color Hex. I know Apply from Florida Mayhem is also going to be eligible in the Mayhem second game, which is going to be against Chengdu Hunters. And I do quick want to note, last week Bishu was sick for the LA Gladiators, so there's a good chance we might see Bishu see play in week 2 as well. And just looking at the schedule, Gladiators are going up against London, and that's going to be a very telling match to see how good both of these teams are. Because Gladiators, yes, they're 1-1, but they did look like a very high skill team in both of their series. And, going into week 3, I'm just looking at... I'm pretty sure Decay turns 18 on the 27th, which would be right in time for week 3. So, this is going to be another one of those weeks where we're going to have one look. We're going to have week 1, they're going to have no Bishu. Week 2, probably have Bishu. And then week 3, we'll have the Gladiators with Decay. So, we're going to see 3 different iterations of this team. And I really feel like across the board, every iteration is going to look better. So I cannot wait to see how they progress.
And they play, sorry, just to correct you, this week they actually play Paris. It's week 3 that they play London and the Spark.
Yeah, I did say Paris.
Oh, I thought you said London this week. I don't know. I'm losing my mind.
Maybe I did. I don't know. Well, anyways, it's a European team. Yeah. One of them is going to have a good 3-3. One of them's going to have a bad 3-3.
And the thing is, yes, Apply's coming off suspension. He's on a 2-way contract. If Saya player is not playing and Apply plays over Saya player, fire everyone on the Florida Mayhem immediately. That's another one we didn't really say before. How has Saya player not played a round for the Florida Mayhem? He's hands down their best player, and it's not even close. And you're just like, nah, we're not going to play you at all. We're going to play Tavik. Okay.
Which we didn't expect.
No, we didn't expect. And as you don't want to say there's a communication issue there, but more than likely, you have one European player on an all-Korean roster, and you benched your Korean star player who would play over Tavik. What's going on here? Why is he not? There has to be a reason he's not playing. So I don't know. We'll get a lot of answers answered this week. I think I have a bet coming up this week too with someone. Because I feel the Spark playing the Outlaws, I made a bet on that, but I can't remember with who. So if I made a bet with you on that, let me know.
All right. Well, with that being said, Ed, what are the matches that you're most looking forward to going into week number 2?
All right. So I'll just do one from each day. The match on the first day, Thursday, is actually a pretty kind of blah day. But I would say Seoul Dynasty versus the Chengdu Hunters, because I want to see Seoul Dynasty bounce back after that loss to the Fuel, and then just crush someone. On Friday, I'm probably looking forward to the New York Excelsior versus the Valiant. I want us to see how, because the Valiant, like you said, put up a great effort last week against the Spark. And New York Excelsior, while they look good, they didn't look as dominant. So it will be interesting to see New York actually go up against somebody who can really put up a fight. I think on Saturday, I'm looking at the Gladiators versus Paris Eternal. I want to see if Paris is what they're cracked up to be, because, yes, their goats looked phenomenal, but they played the Spitfire, who we kind of come to realize is not that good. And then on Sunday's going to be your big day. That day, I'm actually looking at the Titans versus the San Francisco Shock as probably my matchup of the week, because we still don't know how to read the San Francisco Shock, whether they're good or not. Like, they look phenomenal, they don't look phenomenal, and going up against Vancouver, we only got to see them in a 4-0 45-minute match against the Shanghai Dragons. Like, I want to see the Titans in a true, real match against somebody who plays well. So I'm looking forward to that one, and that's the last map of the week. So what about you? What games are you looking forward to?
Looking at the field, I did not write down what dailies are on, but the three that I'm most intrigued by are Gladiators versus Eternal, which I already kind of touched up on. The Valiant Excelsior match is another one that I'm keeping my eye on, because we'll see whether or not Custa is going to play or not. Because I feel like if Kuki is still going to be in, I expect NYXL to try to exploit that, where, they'll have Meko probably on the Sombra looking to disrupt the music, basically. I just put a stop to it. But I had to say, though, like, with that match, all bets are off when it comes to Izayaki and JJoNak. I don't know who's going to get the better of the exchange. I feel like it's going to be close. But if you're going to see Zenyatta's pop off more so in one series over others, it's going to be that match in particular.
And I want to say one thing about that match that I'm actually looking forward to more than Izayaki versus JJoNak. I am looking up more so looking forward to Space versus Nene. And seeing, because Space was quietly like the best diva last week. And I think he ate, 4 or 5 grabs last week in like one match.
Yeah, he was averaging, at some points on the control once, 3 in a round. It's crazy.
Space is the best diva in the Overwatch League. We don't look at him the same way because he's not putting up the fantasy numbers of the number one diva in the league. But he is, from an actual play perspective, he's the number one diva. And you're going up against Nene, who looked amazing on Zarya. So that's the matchup in that one that I'm really keeping an eye on.
And you know what I definitely took away from Nene's performance is the fact that, kind of going into it after we heard the XL2 pickups getting promoted, we were kind of saying, Flower wasn't the carry on that team ever. It was usually Nene. And then Nene comes in, he sees all this playtime. We don't see Flower. We don't see Pine. We don't see Saviolbi. And then Nene is just center stage and just flexing on everyone. And I could not be happier to see that.
I'm for the watch me whip, watch me Nene.
Oh, I'm sure it was happening in Twitch chat, but, I didn't have that open. But I
want him to do it in an interview. Do the dance.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm not saying it will. I think it should. It's what I want to see.
Okay. Whatever floats your boat. But the other one I'm definitely invested in, obviously, which you already brought up technically, is the Shock versus the Titans. Now, the Shock, this is a team that I felt pretty confident in, with our rankings going into the season. And lo and behold, the one issue on this team that was kind of all over the place and inconsistent was the main tank spot. So I don't know where to put them right now. Because there were times when Super looked really good. There were times where Super looked really bad. And I don't know where the Shock are right now. But what I will say is I like Sinatra's Zarya. We got to see some really interesting things with Architect.
Whoa. Can somebody clip that? What did you liked whose Zarya?
Sinatra's.
Wow.
But that's always been the hero I've liked more. of his hero pool.
You said positive things about Sinatra. We have hit a new milestone this week. You know what?
There's no way to end this in a better spot here, so we're just gonna end it. Click.
And we're done.
Done. Ending it early. But not too early, but close enough. But anyways, as I was saying, Architect, we got to see some awesome stuff with. We got to see him play Anna. And I remember when he was on it, I think it was on King's Row, was like the map that I really want to showcase, because like he had a really like huge round, whether it was land and sleep darts or just the number of bionades. And if you're a team that is thinking of running only 2 tanks against the Shock, you need to second guess yourself, because Architect absolutely was on lockdown in that series. But the other one I quick want to note that I'm really intrigued by is the Dynasty versus the Hunters game. Now, Chengdu is a team that a lot of us were just kind of like, this is the whole Miraculous Youngster story arc. Some of these players haven't really been on stage for a year. And Chengdu probably had the better looking, like, triple DPS compositions. At least what we saw in week 1. Now, granted, that's kind of a limited sample size. But we saw basically 2 different looking Dynasty teams where, Zunba was benched. We saw a lot of Michelle. Got to see a lot of Fisher, which was nice to see, because, there were some rumors going around in scrim talks that Fisher wasn't actually starting, and who knows what was true, what wasn't, but Fisher looked pretty solid. But really across the board, they had some strong performances, but some of their synergy just quite isn't there yet. So I want to see whether the Hunters are going to put up like a really solid fight against someone that we still feel is like above kind of like that cutoff point for the playoffs still. Because that's going to be a good look at where the Hunters actually are. Because a lot of people just look at Chengdu and they're like, okay, we're not really expecting much from some of the Chinese expansion teams. They kind of have their own flair. We'll see how it holds up. And early on, they're probably going to find more success running that triple DPS as opposed to as the season progresses. So this is going to be a good test on both sides. And honestly, like, I would not be surprised if Chengdu puts up a good fight. And I also wouldn't be surprised if Dynasty just comes out with the 4-0 or, something that we would kind of expect after they try to bounce back from what was a rough loss after AKM happened on King's Row, which was, as a Dynasty fan, crushing. But as a fan of Overwatch esports, I absolutely loved.
Yep. That was one thing that I will say that could be a downfall of Seoul is they had no answer for anything Sombra related. Like, that was one thing that was pretty prevalent when we were watching it, because I was like, okay, how are they going to counter AKM on the Sombra? And the answer was they weren't. Like they had no answer to it, and I think that's great for the game. Bad for Seoul Dynasty fans, because I actually think Seoul Dynasty, and I still think Seoul Dynasty has the chance to be one of the best teams in Overwatch, because now they have Jessica on Lucio being shot caller, and I love the team. Everything about the team. The only thing that they could probably improve on is maybe get another, if they could somehow get a better second DPS. Like, Munchkin's not bad. He's not bad. But if they could somehow finagle a trade or get somebody to come in there and be a better second DPS, that'd be awesome for them. But yeah, it will be interesting because, like you said, it could be a real match, or it could be just a 45-minute, we're going to stomp these Hunters because we're pissed off we lost the fuel last week.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think, like, what some of the other matches are. I'm just looking at the quick sheet. The Boston Uprising Shanghai Dragons game is going to be really interesting too. I will say, like, when it comes to Boston, I'm very confident that they will continue to start fusions on the main tank role. Now, kind of going back to opening week, we did see both Winston and Reinhardt. We saw more Reinhardt kind of across the board. There were times where we got to see a little bit of like dive tanks, paired together with the Winston, with the D.Va. But Reinhardt seemed to be the favored tank when it came to the 3-3 compositions that we were seeing. And between the two, there's no doubt in my mind Fusions is the guy to go to. And what I loved about Fusions necessarily wasn't the aggression that we saw, because like I feel like there were a lot of times where he was overextending and he just was not getting punished for it, which can easily be exposed in the Overwatch League, but that's kind of besides the point. What I loved was when he was doing the post-match interview, you could tell like his voice was already going, like getting shot.
Yeah.
So he's coming in, he's like 19, and he's acting as the shot caller in the Overwatch League when he's barely been with the team for like a week, because he was a late promotion. So for him to just come in and have like that sort of performance, and for him to just like kind of like take control of that team, really speaks high volumes about him as a leader on that team. And I feel like that's definitely going to put Axiom as the backup for Uprising.
Yeah. And one last match for me is because it could be a trap game, is the Houston Outlaws versus the Spark. Like, maybe Houston comes in, they have a serious sit down there, like, all right, we got to stop this. This is what we're going to do. No matter what, you bench Jake. I'm sorry. Jake should not be in there. Linkser needs to be in there full time with Dante. Plain and simple, those need to be your starting DPS. You get Boink in there, you get Raucus in there. It could be a trap game for the Spark. I'm still thinking the Spark wins like 3-1, but it's one of those matches where it's like, they could come back with a fury and beat the Spark, which I really hope they don't, because I want the Spark to go up 3-0. Like, I want them to go 3-0. I want them to go 4-0 after this week. So, but that could be a trap game as well.
I could definitely see that. With that being said, though, I know we are getting close to that time. So let's go ahead and close out the show for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, one of the best things to do is to go leave us a review over on iTunes. We're always looking for insight on how we can make for a better listen experience, whether it's, for the live show, whether it's for audio only. We appreciate feedback in regards to both, especially since, we are using BeLive, and I know it's still relatively new, but we are starting to use it across all of our podcasts, at least on the Twitch side of things. And if you guys are looking for additional content, well, there's Overwatch Recall. It's a content hub for all things Overwatch, whether it's Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League, and really everything in between, whatever that means. There's some other stuff, some other subgenres. That's besides the point, like, hero specific. We got a couple of those as well. You can find that on our website at owlnshow.com/OW Recall. And then every Sunday night, we release the episodic listens of all the latest Overwatch podcasts from that past week. And I know last week we had 29 different podcasts release a new episode. It's just crazy. Like, we knew with Overwatch League starting up, we were going to see an influx. And, we're nearing 30 a week now. So I hope that we see that trend continue. But if you want to help us further, really the best way is to, one, definitely retweet, whenever we get a new episode out. Let people know when we're going live. But you can support our podcast network via Patreon. And this is, it directly helps us, deal with, tech stuff. It helps with Libsyn hosting, because, we do have 4 podcasts now. And we do have tiers starting at just $1. and it goes like all the way up to $10. So, you can get like, you can submit topics for any of our podcasts. We do like polls. We've been doing an AMA. You can get VOD reviews. Go check it out. It's a good way to support us. And we definitely appreciate any support that you do give us, no matter if it's, via Patreon or just, spreading the word. Whether it's word of mouth or, on social media, all of that is good to us. But Ed, we do have a number of different ways how our listeners can get a hold of us. So why don't you let them know how they can do that?
All right. Well, you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We do have a website, and that's owlnshow.com, so you can come over there. We do have a YouTube channel, and that's youtube.com/c/Overwatch League Network. That's where we have our videos of all our shows up there, the videos of that Spider did for the new Paris map, as well as our weekly updated power rankings that we do. So go there, check that out. We are on Discord, so come join us on Discord at discord.me/OWLNshow. And then we are streaming presently live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. We are a Twitch affiliate, so come help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn a network emoticon. Our podcast network streams pretty regularly, so on Monday nights, we have the Overwatch League Network that starts at 7 p.m. Pacific. On Tuesdays, we have our Fantasy Overwatch podcast, which is OWL by the Numbers, that Totem and myself do, along with Blaze and Bob and Julian Goulian, at 6 p.m. Pacific. And then we have this show right now, Heroes Never Die, which covers a variety of Overwatch. That's Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then when available, host streams will be Thursdays, Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. But that's generally not happening because, well, the Overwatch League is happening. And like Totem said, we do have our Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network. Got it right again.
2 in a row.
2 in a row. So come help support there. That'd be very much appreciated. You can contact me personally on Twitter at Edanar Overwatch. That's EDANAR Overwatch. Totem, where can they find you at?
Well, I'm glad that you asked, Edanar. I'm over on Twitter at ReallyDrunkCTR. And of course, I'm live here 3 nights a week. And yes, 100% Overwatch League is happening. Host streams are probably not happening for the next 6 months. I'm just throwing it out there. It's probably not ever going to happen.
The thing is like a host stream could happen, but what it would be is we would have the Overwatch League network up on the Twitch stream, and we'd be just doing like talking about it while it's going on. That would be the Twitch stream if we ever decided to do that, which would actually be kind of fun. But I don't know if we are even allowed to do that.
See, the thing is, since Sideshow is in Visa hell right now, he's been kind of doing his own thing, and I would not want to compete with that.
Fair enough. All right, I accept this.
But that is besides the point. I do want to thank everyone for hanging out with us again tonight in the Twitch chat for our live show for another episode of Heroes Never Die. We greatly appreciate it. But with that being said, guys, it's time for us to get the hell out of Dodge. We're to close out the show. So thanks again for hanging out, and we hope that you enjoy Stage 1, Week 2, and we will see you back for our next podcast episode, which will be Monday night for Overwatch League Network. Guys, have a good night.
Have a good one.